Welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is episode 34 of the Canton Cover-Up Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. And as you can see by the thumbnail, because Jen McCabe was the one who Google searched house long to die in cold on the night that John O'Keefe, Boston police officer John O'Keefe lost his life. She Googled it at 2:27 a.m. in the morning, and this was long before anyone knew knew that he was missing, or even found his body. In honor of that, I thought we would go through all of the McCabe's testimonies, at least their cross by Yannetti and Jackson, because there are some really good moments. So going from left to right, we've got Allison, Matt, and Jen McCabe. So these are the McCabe family. Well, they have three other daughters who have not testified, but at this point, they dragged their one daughter, Allison, into it. So we are going to watch Allison McCabe, or she goes by Allie as well. We're going to watch Allison McCabe's testimony from the trial. She was day 12 of the trial. So let me unmute you. Let me shrink myself down. All right, so this is the beginning of Cross, David Yannetti, and Allison McCabe. So let's see how long it takes to impeach her.
Good afternoon.
Oh, by the way, she came on the stand and testified that she was Colin Albert's ride home. And she produced some text messages that they used as an exhibit during the state's portion of questioning. And the images look kind of fishy. But Allison McCabe says these came from my phone or whatever. And these are her communications with Colin Albert. She came and picked him up. She dropped him off at Brian Albert's, and then she picked him up, is what her testimony said. So let's see how long it takes to impeach a McCabe.
Good afternoon.
How long
House long to impeach a McCabe.
have you had an iPhone? I'm not talking about your current iPhone, but just iPhones in general.
For years.
More than 5 years?
Yes.
And how old are you now?
I'm 20.
20. And when did you get your first iPhone, if you remember?
I don't remember.
12, 13?
Yeah, around middle
So
schoolish.
maybe 7 or 8 years. Is that a decent estimate?
Yes.
And in those 7 or 8 years, you have learned how to operate an iPhone, the various features that they have, and the apps that you can download and use, correct?
Correct.
And your current iPhone has a number of apps on it, correct?
Correct.
With regard to the text message app, you'll agree with me that that is a green icon with a white sort of speech bubble in the middle of it?
Yes, I believe.
And you know that when you click on that, it gives you a list of the text messages that you're exchanging with people, the various threads, correct?
Correct.
You know that if you click on a thread, it opens up the individual text messages that you've sent and received to that particular person, correct?
Correct.
And you know that if you take your finger or your thumb and you hold it on one particular text that's either sent to you or from you, you can do things with that individual text, correct?
Correct.
You can
What do you mean?
forward it to somebody else, right?
Correct, I believe.
In the context of a conversation, you can just reply to that one particular text message, right?
Correct.
And if you do that, rather than hit the arrow button where you forward or reply, on the left side of the screen, there's a trash can, correct?
I'm not sure.
You know that you can delete a text from a thread, correct?
Correct.
And it's a trash can that you click on, right?
Correct.
I'm not trying to trick you.
No, I was confused. Sorry.
No, I don't mean to confuse you. So you know that if you click on the trash can, it gives you an option to either cancel or to delete the message, correct?
Correct.
And what happens if you delete the message?
It's deleted off the phone.
Okay, so it's gone from that thread, correct?
Correct.
And somebody looking at a screenshot that you take after you've deleted that message, it wouldn't be evident that that message was ever there, correct?
Correct.
Now, you testified at a hearing in Boston on August 3rd of 2023, correct?
Correct.
That was, and we're not with a jury present, that was a federal grand jury, correct?
Correct.
And you had, by that point, by August of 2023, you no longer had the phone that you originally had on January 29th of 22, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
You had gotten a new phone in December of 2022, correct?
Okay, I'm not sure what time, but yeah, I got a new phone. I believe I got a new phone.
But, and actually, the timing is not that important, just that it was before that grand jury appearance.
Okay, yes.
All right. And what did you do with the old phone when you got the new phone?
Transfer through iCloud, everything transfers over.
Okay, but I'm actually talking about the hardware itself.
Oh, what did I?
iPhone.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes, I'm sorry. Not the data on the phone. I understand that you've testified that you transferred that to the new phone, but the actual physical phone itself, where did that go when you got the new phone?
I'm not sure.
Would that have been traded in?
Possibly.
You don't have it now, correct?
I don't think, no.
And as of August of 2023, you didn't have it either, correct?
Correct.
Is it fair to say that no investigator from this case ever asked you for that phone that you had on January 29th?
Correct.
So, Ms. Giannetti, can we just focus on the voir dire? All that you're doing, you can cross-examine her with, but on the voir dire of this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'd just like to get the jurors back in.
No, I understand.
Oh, so this is not in front of the jury. I didn't realize that. So this is not in front of the jury. He's asking her questions about these texts and trying to validate them and trying to validate her other
Your Honor, I
testimony.
understand. I was trying to lay a foundation, but maybe it's not necessary. With regard to...
If you need to do it, go ahead. I'm just trying to.
I want to accommodate the court. With regard to the messages that are in a given thread, right? We've talked about the fact that you are aware that you can reply to them, an individual message forward or delete one, correct?
Correct.
You're also aware that it is possible to change the timestamp on any individual message, correct?
No, I'm not aware of that.
You go to settings and you go to general and you go to date and time. First of all, you can change the time zone of the message. Do you have your iPhone with you right now?
Not on me.
Not on. And in addition to being able to change the time zone, you actually can change the hour and minute to whatever you want it to be. Were you aware of that?
No.
Did you guys in the chat know this? Let me know in the comments below if you knew that you could change your time in your phone like that and manipulate your texts. I didn't know you could do it like on this scale where you could actually like input the date and time and manually change it. I knew you could change time zones, but I didn't know about this option.
With regard to photos on your phone, you are aware that you can change the date and time of any photo in your photo app, correct?
Nope.
There is a little, when you go to your iPhone, there's a little I for information. And all you need to do is, or I think it's for info or information, all you need to do is click on that, and you get a pop-up from the bottom that gives you the choice to alter the date and time. Did you know that?
No.
Next to that date and time is the word adjust, and that's all you have to click on. And you can change the time from 12:10 a.m., or you can change it from 12:40 a.m. to 12:10 a.m., or you can change it from 1:45 to 12:10 a.m. And it's that easy.
Yep. Now I know. I didn't know that. I didn't do that.
Let me have a moment.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. So I'm going to allow this testimony in. Your argument goes to the weight of the evidence, not its admissibility. But I did, under Commonwealth versus Trotty, want to give you your voir dire. Okay. All right. So let's bring the jurors back in.
There's Karen. Man, she's got to be so tired. This has to be exhausting on her. I would be so stressed and exhausted. Bad for her. It looks like she's holding it together. Also, she has the truth on her side, so she should feel pretty confident right now. Oh, they got more to talk about.
Yes.
Okay. Jurors, remember, I've told you this before you consider any electronic communication in your deliberations, you must find first that it is more likely true than not that the person who authored or sent if you do not find that it's electronic
Yeah, so she gives them an instruction saying, like, you have to find that it actually came from the individual, saying that it's coming from them, and find it credible before you assess it with the rest of the evidence. But we're going to skip past Lolly. Well, let's watch a little bit
And
of this.
prior to that date of January 28th into the 29th, 2022, had you had phone conversations where you would sort of press the button to call that number and it rang, correct?
Correct.
And who, if anyone, answered the phone when you contacted that phone number in your phone?
Colin.
Now, with reference...
Basically, just validating that it is Colin's number is what this is doing. Whether it is or isn't, I don't know.
To calling and the contact in your phone, had you had prior text communications with Colin using that contact that you put in?
Correct.
And outside of those text communications that you had, did you have sort of physical, in-person conversations with Colin in regard to content that was within text messages you have with that content?
Yes, I assume so.
And specifically on that date of January 28th and the 29th, when you arrived at the home on Fairview Road, you texted Colin that you were there?
Yes.
And after you texted him that, what, if anything, happened after that?
He responded saying okay, and then he came out to the car.
And Your Honor, if I may, with the court's permission, just publish the text communication to the jury on the screen?
Yes.
Now the jury is going to see these text messages that
You could pull down.
Allison McCabe and Colin Albert are claiming took place that night when John O'Keefe's life was taken. And this is important whether they are or aren't actually verified. It's important because of the timeline, because Colin says that he's home at 12:10 exactly. And from other people's statements and testimony, it doesn't appear that he was home that early. So these texts, if they're fabricated, means a it really is that's huge in the sense that it could imply that these people are lying and in on a cover up, which I already have bought into that because that's what's happening here. But the just let's listen to the text messages and see what you guys think. Let me know in the comments what you think about it.
Now, what's up on
about the
screen is the case
conversation.
that you have before you as the exhibit.
Yes.
And looking at, there's sort of one side has text and one side has blue bubble. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if you know who is communicating with who as far as
And I've pointed this out, and I don't know why anybody has not pointed this out in any other uh, video that I've watched thus far about this, but where's the gray bubble that Colin's texts should be in if she's handing this over? Why aren't these in gray bubbles? Or even, green or whatever, if he's not an iPhone, which I think he is. So it should be in a blue bubble. I'm sorry, hers are in the blue, should be in the gray bubble, where it would say, if easier word, get me after. So there's no bubble. And also there's some discrepancies that people have pointed out versus when it comes to like the date and time change. Well, there isn't one to be fair. So when would that have appeared, or would it have appeared on their version of iOS systems or whatever? So
the sort of plain text outside of bubble?
Colin and I? Is that what you're asking? Sorry.
I'm asking is who's the blue bubble?
Oh, sorry. I'm the blue bubble, and he is the gray whitish bubble.
And
what gray whitish bubble? I don't see a bubble. There's no bubble. Am I crazy here? Where's the gray white bubble?
sort of top of what's depicted on the screen, you read the text that you received and the time that you received.
Yes, 11:54, and then I responded at 11:55.
And what did Colin say at 11:54?
You can get me now if easier.
And what did you respond?
Okay, I am driving people home now.
And what did Colin respond to that, and what time did he respond?
He responded, word, get me after.
And if someone could scroll down to and
What was that noise she made? She like did a weird breathing thing into the mic. Let's pay attention to her because we need to know if this is a real text message thread.
following the get me after, what range of response did you provide?
KK, okay, and here,
And here that you texted, what time does that read on the screenshot?
12:10 a.m.
And what, if anything, did Colin respond to the your text?
He responded at the same time saying, okay.
Somebody can take that. May I approach this retreat here?
Yes.
Do you need that? Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So the next two pages, two separate pages, contain photographs, is that correct?
Yes,
And you recognize what's depicted in those photographs that I've just placed before you?
yes.
What do you recognize those?
It's Colin. Is that what you're asking?
Well, let me ask you more specifically.
Okay.
So, were these also screenshots that you provided to troopers of the state police in August of 2020?
Yes, I believe so.
What's in regard to those two photographs, do you know when and where those photographs were taken?
They were taken February 11th at the Alberts, Nicole and Brian's house.
Objection.
No, I'm going to let her testify when they're taken.
And so February 11th of what year now?
2022.
So a few weeks after January 28th, 29th, correct?
Yes.
And were you present at the Alberts house on the evening of February 11th when they were taken?
Yes.
And what was the purpose of yourself and or Colin or anybody being over the Alberts house on that day?
One of Nicole and Brian's sons were coming home from their Marines, so there was like a welcome home party with family and friends.
And that is your cousin Jack, is that correct?
Correct.
And as far as what's contained in those photographs, is that a fair and accurate portrayal as far as your memory of what Colin looked like?
All right, I'm going to skip over Lolly's dumb questions here. So he just wants to get these photos in, which she claims to be February 11th, and it's a photo of Colin. You can see, you could barely see his knuckles, and it's only the, like you can only see the front of his knuckles, not the tops of his knuckles. But keep this in mind because they brought this, the prosecution opened the door for this because the prosecution brought in these photos to show, oh, look, Colin's knuckles aren't banged up. Look how perfect they are. But you can't even see them. You can't even see his right hand because all you see is the top part. That's my right hand. So, what else was I going to say about that? Oh, so this opens the door for later when Colin is on the stand. The prosecution confronts him with, hold on 1 second. I think something's happening outside the door. Hold on 1 second. All right, so as I was saying, the prosecution opens the door for the defense bringing in some other photos of Colin when Colin is on the stand. They confront him with a photo that they find or that was posted on social media, and it was the later part of February, so a little bit after they claim this happened, and you can actually see that Colin's got banged up knuckles. So the state actually open the door for the defense to bring in photos of Colin's knuckles that look banged up and definitely look like he was hitting something. So be careful what you wish for. All right, so that's all I wanted to show you of her her direct. Let's move on to cross. I think it's very shortly after. Yeah. All right, doesn't she look nervous now? It's like you can get up there and easily lie when it comes to the state's case because Lolly is just throwing you softball questions and all you're doing is just asking or answering basic things that you can say, one way or another. You can answer it however you feel. But then when you get to cross, that's when you're locked into the answers that you said on direct, and you're also locked into statements that you've said in the past. So they're going to be looking for contradictory things that you've said or anything that's inconsistent with past statements or any of that. So it's going to be interesting to see how long it takes to impeach a McCabe. In this case, it's an Allison.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions, John.
Okay, Giannetti?
Thank you.
Nash gets all nervous.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Ms. McCabe, you have known Colin Albert your whole life, correct?
Correct.
Your mother is Jennifer McCabe.
Correct.
His mother is Julie Albert.
Correct.
And her maiden name was Julie Daniels.
Correct.
Your mother, Jennifer, grew up together with his mother, Julie, correct?
Correct.
You and Colin are extremely close, correct?
Yes.
In fact, you would consider Colin Albert to be one of your best friends in the world, correct?
Yes, he's one of my best friends.
Now, you claim that you took a screenshot of a text conversation that you had with Colin Albert on January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Those were the screenshots that were just shown to this jury this afternoon, correct?
Correct.
And you claim that the information on that screenshot actually existed on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Did you tell your mother, Jennifer McCabe, that you had that text conversation with Colin Albert anytime after January 29th of 2022?
Objection.
Sustained.
Did you give to your mother, Jennifer McCabe, a screenshot of that text message conversation?
Objection.
Sustained.
It's fair to say that on January 29th, 30th, 31st, you did not turn over that screenshot to any law enforcement official, correct, of 2022?
No, I was never asked.
Was never asked. So the whole town is abuzz talking about a Boston police officer, John O'Keefe, who lost his life on another officer's front lawn. Not just any officer, but your supposed best friend's uncle's house. So you don't talk about it. You haven't been in communication at all regarding it. It's just very odd, it seems, don't you think? I mean, kids talk. Sorry, my dog is annoying me. She's constantly moving around and messing up my equipment. All right, so back to the video. Allison McCabe, cross-examination by David Unetti.
Investigator from this case ever asked you for copies or a copy of that screenshot of that text message conversation on January 29th, 30th, or 31st, correct?
Correct.
They also did not ask you for a copy of that screenshot through the whole month of February, correct?
Correct.
In fact, all of 2022, no investigator ever approached you to say, can I have a copy of that screenshot, correct?
Correct.
And in addition to that, you never called an investigator to say, hey, I have a copy of a screenshot of a text message conversation that I had with Colin Albert, correct?
No, it wouldn't have been relevant at that time,
Okay.
I believe, because Colin was not at the house and wasn't introduced as being
Doesn't she sound nervous now? I mean, I have it on fast speed, but you could tell. You can tell in her voice. It starts to sound shaky.
there until later.
So your testimony today is that at no time in the year 2022 did you consider it relevant at all that you had this screenshot of this text conversation, correct?
Correct.
Leaving that screenshot aside,
She shook her head. No, but she said correct. Check that out again.
that is that at no time in the year 2022 did you consider it relevant at all that you had this screenshot of this text conversation, correct?
Correct.
Leaving that screenshot aside,
Correct.
actually, before I leave that topic, you didn't turn over
That doesn't match your body language. Oh, can you please stop messing me up here?
that screenshot of the text message until sometime during the summer of 2023, correct?
Correct.
About a year and a half or more after January 29th of 2022, correct?
Yes, when I was asked.
And
A year
by
and a
that
half
time,
later. A year and a half later, she turns over these supposed authentic texts from her and Colin. And this whole time we've never known because the whole Albert family and the McCabes have all testified or said in statement or never mentioned that Colin was there. Everyone omitted his name in original statements. Actually, that's not true. They got caught in, I think Chris and Julie got caught in one of their statements because of admitting it. But anyways, it wasn't until the grand jury that the defense found out that Colin was in the house. And then they realized, hey, wait a minute, why are they spending so much effort trying to hide this kid's presence in the house? Well, we still are wondering, but it's possible he could be the culprit.
the summer of 2023, you had already switched phones, correct?
Yes, I
In
believe.
other words, the iPhone that you had on January 29th of 2022, you no longer have possession of that physical phone, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it interesting how they all keep upgrading their phones? We saw in the Brian Albert testimony that he upgraded his phone, which he was about to be served a do not destroy, whatever it is, like a dog again. She just can't sit still. Um, and then she makes me forget what I was saying. Sorry. I don't remember. Oh, Brian Albert destroying his phone. He destroyed his phone supposedly the day or the in the days before he had a do not destroy um this could be evidence type of subpoena. I don't know, what do they do? A warrant for his phone. Something, not a warrant. You guys know what I'm saying? Escaping me. preservation order. That's what it was. Sorry. Anyway,
Correct.
go on.
You had a new iPhone, correct?
Correct.
And you say that you transferred over the data from the old phone to the new phone, correct?
Correct.
When did you take that screenshot that was displayed to the jury today?
I don't remember.
Was it before or after you got rid of your old phone?
I don't remember.
So we don't know if that screenshot was from your phone that you got in December of 2022 or if it was from the phone that you had back in January of 2022, correct?
Correct.
That phone that you got in December of 2022, it's now May of 2024. Do you still have that same phone?
The phone, my old phone? Is that?
No, my question was, I'm not trying to trick you in any way here. The phone that you got in December of 2022, the new phone at that time, is that the phone, your current phone?
Correct.
Now, before you got rid of the old phone and got the new one, did any law enforcement official, prior to that December of 2022 time period, or investigator from this case ever ask to examine your physical phone itself?
No.
Did they ever say to you, we would like to do what's called an extraction on your phone?
No.
And you never gave that phone at any point to any law enforcement official before you got rid of it, correct?
Correct.
And the first time that you mentioned that text conversation outside of your family was August 3rd of 2023, correct?
Correct.
That was at a proceeding in Boston, correct?
Correct.
Where neither Mr. Lally was involved nor we would.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yeah, move along, Mr. Yanedi.
Yes. That proceeding in August of 2023 was less than a year ago, correct? We're in May of 2024?
Correct.
And that was a long time after John O'Keefe was found dead on Brian Albert's lawn, correct?
Correct.
And that August of 2023, when you're revealing that text exchange, that was over a year and a half after January 29th of 2022, correct?
Correct.
Oh, look at that. We suddenly have evidence that we hadn't turned over for a crime that happened a year and a half ago. Oh, and it happens to be the explanation as to, and alibi as to Colin Albert that night. Sketchy. So sketchy that all of a sudden, a year and a half later, we have an alibi for Colin.
And leaving aside the screenshot, as of August 3rd of 2023, no investigator from this case, no state police trooper or anybody from the DA's office had ever interviewed you, right, prior to August of 2023?
I talked to the state troopers, but I don't know if that was before or after.
That was on August 25th of 2023, which is about 3 weeks after your testimony in the other proceedings. Does that refresh your memory?
Yes, then after.
And
Yeah.
at that point in time, on August 25th of 2023, you'll agree with me that you were not interviewed at a police station or a state police barracks, correct?
Correct.
Or the DA's office, correct?
Correct.
You were interviewed by Zoom, correct?
Correct.
And you were not alone at that time in your home, correct?
I'm not sure.
Your mother, Jennifer McCabe, was present, correct?
Okay.
And she was monitoring what was going on in that interview, correct?
Objection.
Was that true?
I don't recall.
Okay. In any case, that too was over a year and a half after January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Jen McCabe was sitting in on her testimony, her sworn statements in court proceedings. And we also have Brian Albert sitting in on Jen McCabe's interview with investigators. Like, what is going on with this family? Why do they have other people sitting in for these statements? The police didn't take anybody's statement separately at the scene. They talked to the family or the Alberts and the people who were present in the home. They talked to them all as one big group. So, like, this case was so poorly investigated, but not only that, then they frame an innocent woman. It's like, eh, you couldn't even investigate properly for a Boston police officer. That's what is so sad, is that the O'Keefe family will probably never receive the justice that they deserve. They also had been infiltrated by the McCabes, the McAlberts, and they were believing everything that they were saying and going to court with the McAlberts for months prior to these proceedings happening. So they've already chosen their side. The O'Keefes have chosen not Karen. They've decided to choose the other side, the side that is against Karen. unfortunately. And they probably know, and are probably seeing through all the testimony that fighting the wrong, they've been on the wrong side. I don't know. But no one, mm, always reserve my comments on that. It just seems like we won't know, I guess, if they've changed their tune until later. I'm really sick of the Paul O'Keefe stares at and glaring at Karen. Anyways, back to Allison McCabe's impeachment.
All right. Now, I'd like to ask you some questions about, oh, by the way, you've had an iPhone since you were 12 or 13 years old.
Correct.
And you're now how old?
20.
So 7 or 8 years would be a good estimate as to how long you've worked with iPhones?
Correct.
And obviously you know how an iPhone works, correct?
Correct.
You know how to reply and comment on text messages, correct?
Correct.
And you know that there's a lot of tools open to you to comment on text messages, correct?
Correct.
You can reply to a text using an icon or an emoji, right, to like or dislike something that somebody else said.
Correct.
You can laugh at it, you can love it, you can like it, correct?
Objection.
Right?
Correct.
And they make it pretty easy, right? All you need to do is put your finger or your thumb on a specific message and hold it down, and options appear, correct?
Correct.
And that's where you get the thumbs up, the thumbs down, the haha, exclamation points, question mark, etc.
Correct.
And you also have other options, which is down the bottom, there's a kind of a curved arrow where if you click on that, you can forward the message or reply to a specific message, correct?
Correct.
And on the left, there's a trash can, right?
Correct.
And what happens when you click on the trash can?
It will delete the message from your phone.
And it's your testimony that with regard to the screenshot that we saw, there are no deleted messages in that conversation, correct?
It just proves she knows how to delete text messages. And there's no communication from January 28th, 29th until February 20th. So where are those communications? Did she delete them? Or were they talking on another platform secretly? Like one that makes your messages disappear after reading them, like a Snapchat?
Yes.
However, you would agree, as you've already testified, that if a message had been deleted from a screenshot, we'd never know, right?
True.
You're also familiar with the apps that are on iPhones, correct?
Correct.
You have a number of apps on your iPhone, right?
Correct.
There might be 12 or 15, I don't know, 12 or 15 maybe on your home screen, right?
Correct.
And if you swipe to the left, you get another new population of 12 or 15.
Correct.
Not bad for an old guy. And you use apps like Instagram.
Correct.
Snapchat is a popular app.
Correct.
And probably to your detriment, but Life 360.
Correct.
All right. That's been an app in the McCabe family for a number of years, right?
Correct. Yes.
And it's in your family anyway, and probably in a lot of families, it's mainly.
I'm not sure what this is, but obviously it's some kind of tracking app where you can track your children and look on your phone and see where they're at all times because it tracks their phone and where they're at. So I'm sure this is a great tool for families.
Used for the parents to keep track of their kids, right?
Correct.
And in order for Life 360 to work, you have to have your location services on, and somebody else has to have the app in the family, correct? Connected to you?
Correct.
And with regard to, just going back to the messages for a minute, do you know the difference between an iMessage and a text message?
Yes, I believe one's blue and one's green.
Okay. The screenshots that we saw of your text conversation that you say that you had with Colin Albert, you were in blue, right?
Correct.
That means that Colin Albert also had an iPhone at the time, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now,
Just wanted to say while that popped into my head, it reminded me when the original investigation was going on and they were asking for geofence data for that night of the crime scene, they only asked for Android phones, knowing full well that everyone in that house had an iPhone. So that's another way you can outsmart the law, so to say. But is it outsmarting them when all this evidence is pointing to the McAlberts as being the guilty parties? I don't know. You guys tell me. Do you think the feds are going to come knocking on their doors? I really hope so soon.
with regard to the timestamp on those messages, the conversation about I'm here, I believe said it gave the time 12:10 a.m., correct?
Correct.
Are you aware how easy it is to change that time?
No.
Are you aware that all you need to do is go from settings to general, and then there's a date and time that you can alter?
Objection.
Do we believe that a 20-year-old woman, she's a woman, a 20-year-old woman, do we believe that she doesn't know how to manipulate the time in her iPhone, which she's had for at least 7 or 8 years of her life? So since she was a teen, she's had an iPhone of her own. She's probably played on them since she was a baby, knowing that, her parents probably had an iPhone and she used to play on it probably before she had her own phone. So I'm just assuming there. But so do we really expect that this woman who grew up in the age of technology all around her at her fingertips, do we believe she doesn't know how to manipulate the time on her phone? I do not. I do not believe her. That's just me. I know my nieces would know everything about how to manipulate things on an iPhone. I guarantee you they know how to do this. This is just one of those things that kids that are in the younger generations, they're going to be just whizzes at, whereas us old folks don't know. Like, oh, you can change your time? What?
Are you aware of that?
No, I didn't know that was a thing.
You know that when you set up your iPhone, you have
I didn't know it was a thing. She didn't know it was a thing. Let's watch that again.
I believe you said it gave the time 12:10 a.m., correct?
Correct.
Are you aware how easy it is to change that time?
No.
Are you aware that all you need to do is go from settings to general, and then there's a date and time that you can alter?
Objection.
Are you aware of that?
No, I didn't know that was a thing.
You know that when you set up your iPhone, you have to choose a time zone, correct?
Correct.
And you always choose the New York time zone, because that's where Boston is, right?
Correct.
Are you aware that if you go into settings, general, and then date and time, you can change the time zone to wherever you're going?
I guess I didn't. Once I set my phone up, I have no reason to change the time.
See? And in addition to changing the time zone, you literally can choose any time that you want. You could make 1:45 a.m., 12:10 a.m. in about 3 seconds. Did you know that?
Do you know that? Do you know that?
No.
But if I'm not accusing you of this now, but if you had changed the time on that from a screenshot, we'd have no way of knowing, correct?
I guess.
Because what a screenshot ultimately becomes is like a photo, correct?
Correct.
It's not like you can edit it, right? I mean, the most that you can do is what we saw on the other photo that was displayed, which is kind of crossing out with a magic marker somebody's face or a time, right? That would be how you'd have to alter it, right?
Correct.
Now, I had asked you if, prior to getting rid of your old phone and getting the new one, if law enforcement ever asked you to go through the phone themselves, and you had said no, right?
Yes, they did not do that.
And they never asked to do an extraction on the old phone, correct?
No.
What about the new phone that you now have, that you got in December? Have the state police ever asked to do, have they ever asked to look through that phone?
No, I don't think so.
You provided the screenshot that was shown to the jury today on August 25th when you talked to the state police in this case, right, of 2023?
Correct.
And when you provided them that screenshot, did they say, hey, by the way, can I look at your phone to see what's on there?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Did they say that to you?
I don't remember.
But in any case, you never physically showed them your phone, right?
No.
You don't recall clicking on that text message app, the green app with the kind of white speech bubble. You didn't click on that and then click on the Colin Albert conversation and say, here it is, did you?
No.
And in addition to not asking you to see your new phone, they also did not ask you to do an extraction of your new phone, correct?
Correct.
And at some point in time, you realized that you'd have to be a witness in this case and have the unfortunate incident of having to talk to me, right?
Objection.
I'm going to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute on this.
All right, so she's gonna see them at sidebar. She likes to know what's gonna happen before it
Okay,
happens.
and just to wrap this up, to this day, no extraction has been done on your phone, correct?
Correct.
Now, when you had that Zoom interview on August 25th, you told the trooper that you drove Colin straight to his house after you picked him up on January 29th, and then you went straight home, correct?
Yes, I believe.
And you have previously testified back in August of 2023 that you believe you dropped Colin Albert off at his home at around 12:15, 12:20 or so?
Correct.
And when you left, by the way, you're very familiar with 34 Fairview, right?
Correct.
That's
They have to have Colin home by that time in order to get him out of the house. By the time John shows up at like 12:20 something is when his phone starts to um, get in the area, starts pinging the area of the Albert residence.
family, correct?
Correct.
Been over there many, many, many times, correct?
Correct.
And you're familiar with the neighborhood in terms of the streets that are around there, right?
Correct.
And you've lived in Canton your whole life?
Yes. Until, yeah.
When you were a baby, you were in Stoughton?
Yes.
Basically, you're a Canton girl. Okay?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury the route that you took home from 34 Fairview, or actually, strike that, the route that you took to Colin Albert's house when you left 34 Fairview on January 29th?
I don't remember specifically, but I would believe I drove up Fairview. Then, sorry, I don't know the streets.
If I suggested to you that the street closest to 34 Fairview was Cedar Crest, and the one on the other side is Chapman, does that refresh your memory?
Yeah, so Chapman,
Okay, so
I
you've
believe.
gone up and gone to Chapman and taken a right or a left?
Really bad with directions. When I got there, I went to the center of town, his house. I don't know specifically which way. I'm trying to think of it. I can't picture it.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Washington Street in Canton?
Yes.
Would you have wound up on Washington Street?
Yes.
All right. And you're aware that the Canton Library is on the corner of Washington and Sherman Street? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So you would pass by the library?
Yes.
All right. Now,
Remember, the Canton Library is missing surveillance footage the exact 2 minutes where Karen's SUV would have been driving home from 34 Fairview that night at around 12:30ish, when she went home. She arrived home at like 12:41 or something, like right around there, and she was leaving a voicemail for John because she didn't know what the plans were supposed to be after he went in the house. He was supposed to come back and talk to her or text her or something, and that never happened. She was waiting to hear back from him. So, because she didn't even know if they were really welcome there. They might not have been. They might have been lured there. I don't know. But we do know that the Canton Library was missing footage of her car, which could prove or disprove that the taillight damage happened at that time, because the Commonwealth wants you to believe that she shattered her tail light at that moment when it was only supposedly cracked that morning. And it wasn't until later that the state police tried to pry it open with some help from some Canton police, because it was still in Canton, the Canton Bay, even though Canton was supposed to have been recused off the case. This case is just so crazy. I could keep going on and on about all the dumb inconsistencies, but I won't. Let's continue with impeaching a McCabe.
with regard to whether you went straight home, did you, by the way, when you went home, did you stay there
Yes, I believe so.
for in the rest of the night?
Yes.
Really? You want to stick to that testimony? Okay.
Okay, and what time do you say that you arrived at home?
I'm not sure. Before around 12:30ish.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Great. Let's lock you
With
in on
regard
that.
to Life 360, would you agree with me that if you go on that app and you're trying to figure out where somebody in your family is, there's like and let's say you want to know if somebody's home, there's like a circle that surrounds your home, correct?
Yes.
So once you enter that circle, you know that Life 360 gives an alert that said you arrived at home. Even though you're physically not walking in the door, you're within that circle, and that's the home circle, right?
Yes.
On January 29th of 2022, at 12:04 and 53 seconds, you arrived within that home circle, correct?
Correct.
And then at
What time?
12:06 and 55 seconds on January 29th, you left that home circle, correct?
Correct.
And then on January 29th of 2022, at 12:23 and 14 seconds, you completed a 7-mile drive where your top speed was 42 miles an hour. Does that make sense?
Correct.
And then you left home on January 29th of 2022 at 12:23 and 14 seconds as well. And what that probably means, reading between the lines, is that you entered that home circle, but then you didn't go home. You went through the home circle and completed a 7-mile drive somewhere, right?
I guess I thought I went home. I'm not-
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer.
I believe I went home.
Okay.
I was completing my drive at my house.
All right, but at 12:26 a.m. on January 29th, you left home again, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
Did you leave home?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay.
All right. And at 12:26 a.m. and 12 seconds, you arrived at the Canton High School, correct?
No.
On January 29th of 2022, at 12:26 and 55 seconds, you completed a 1-mile drive where your top speed was 43 miles per hour, right?
I don't believe so.
And then at
You're going to
12:20
contest the data. That's what this whole family has been doing. The data, ma'am, shows that you answered the call. Well, I didn't answer the call. I didn't even get it. I don't know what you're talking about. That was Nicole Albert on the stand. She was not having it. She's like, nope, I didn't answer any phone calls from my sister at that time when John's body was found. Nope, didn't happen. I don't know. It wasn't me. It's the shaggy defense. Wasn't me.
26 and 55 seconds on January 29th, you left Canton High School and arrived at home on January 29th of 2022 at 12:29 and 28 seconds, correct?
I do not know.
And then after arriving home again on January 29th of 2022 at 12:29 and 29 seconds, you completed a 12-mile drive on January 29th of 2022 at 12:31 and 22 seconds, did you not?
No.
And then you left home on January 29th of 2022 at 1:08 and 15 seconds, right?
I don't believe so.
And ultimately, you went through the home bubble and the Canton High School bubble, and you arrived at Canton High School on January 29th of 2022 at 1:28 in the morning and 8 seconds.
Can I see what you're referring to?
I wonder how close the Albert residence is to the high school, because if the high school is in that like zone that the family has set, like this is the high school, so if she passes near it, then it could say that she went to the high school. So I wonder if the Albert residence is anywhere near the high school. That'd be interesting to know.
Sure. May I approach you on?
Yes.
And so she's like, I don't know what
You
you're
don't need these, right?
talking
No, I'm
about. She's like, you're trying to impeach me with this data, and I don't know what you're talking about. So can I see it so I don't keep lying and making myself look like a bigger fool? And look, look at the eyes of the court reporter. I think she's enjoying this trial.
Good.
Okay, and to make it easy, I mean, you can read the whole thing, but where it says record 16 is what I just asked you about, but feel free to read the whole thing.
Thank you.
And if you would, read it silently to yourself and look up at me when you're done. Sorry. Did that help refresh your memory on where you were that night?
No.
Do you still dispute that you went straight home and didn't leave there?
Objection.
Sustained.
And finally, I just asked you about arriving at Canton High School on January 29th of 2022 at 1:28 and 8 seconds. You arrived at home, within that home bubble, on January 29th of 2022 at 1:30 in the morning and 26 seconds, correct?
What time did it say I arrived at high school?
1:30 in the morning and 26 seconds.
And what time did it say I arrived at high school?
The high school was 1:28 and 8 seconds.
It wouldn't have taken me 2 minutes to go from the high school to my house. I'm confused.
With regard to the high school was also one of the bubbles, one of the areas where you could be, right, on Life 360?
No.
If I may. Yes.
That's not, she was not expecting to be confronted with this evidence. She has some responses to it though, when he's got questions about it, but she wasn't ready to answer questions regarding this.
Okay. Did you say that on Life 360, the Canton High School is not one of the areas that you're tracked in?
What do you mean?
So, do you remember we were talking earlier about?
Oh, like put in a location, like that was home, that was high school.
Like, you know, if your mother's looking for you, where are you?
Yes.
Well, you know, you're at D&E Pizza, you're at high school, you're at, home, right? I mean, those could be categories.
Correct.
You've agreed that home was one of the categories.
Correct.
And having reviewed that, the Canton High School is also one of the categories, correct?
I believe so.
All right. And on January 29th of 2022, the last entry is that you completed a 12-mile drive on January 29th of 2022 at 1:32 in the morning and 23 seconds. And that's the end of the activity. Do you agree with me?
She just testified that she was home by 12:30, dropped Colin off at 12:10, or picked him up right at 12:10, dropped him off about 12:15, 12:20, and then she was home by 12:30. That's what she just testified to. And mm, just in this section, she testified, like in the cross, she testified to that. And now he's going to impeach her with her word. Beautiful.
That's when you finally stopped that night?
I don't recall.
I may have more.
Yes.
No further questions. Thank you, Lauren.
All right, Mr. Lally.
Thank you.
All right, so I don't want to bore you with Lolly. I'm going to skip to the point where she gets all emotional and crying and
Mr. McCabe,
tearing because she's a victim. And this, I believe, they really wanted to get in. So, oh, she said something about, like, I didn't have my Wi-Fi on, so that's why it was putting all those weird times on there. Yeah, okay. That was her excuse.
With reference, are you now
I want to get to where she starts getting it.
She's being harassed for
Here. Perfect.
harassment. Correct.
and what, if anything else, are you close friends with Colin Albert? Is that correct?
Correct.
What, if anything else, has either your family or Colin Albert and his family undergone over the course of the pendency of this case?
Objection.
No, that the door's been open. I'm allowing it.
Well, basically, her.
First of all, it was not open. Beverly, I don't know how you consider the door open because they asked, why didn't you turn over this text message? So that's apparently opening the door for allowing all this harassment that the witnesses claim to be the butt of. Well, they should, because they're not truthful. They're not forthcoming with their information. So we should keep trying to get it out of them, the truth. So let's just back up a second.
Correct.
What, if anything else, has either your family or Colin Albert and his family undergone over the course of the pendency of this case?
Objection.
No, that the door's been open. I'm allowing it.
Well, basically harassment.
And harassment by who?
Bloggers, people online.
And what, if anything, in relation to Colin Albert being in the house has occurred as far as the harassment that you're talking
Can you rephrase?
about? With reference to what you were talking about as far as the relevancy of Colin Albert being in the house at that time, what, if any, harassment was there in relation to that and in relation to Colin?
Well,
Objection.
No, go ahead. She can answer.
Colin wasn't at the house, so he's being harassed for. He was not at the house when John was there, so I drove him home.
He was not at the house when John was there. A little Freudian slip there, Allie? She does go by Allie also. Colin was not there when John was there. Let's hear that again. Tells you nervous. She totally slipped.
With reference to what you were talking about as far as the relevancy of Colin Albert being in the house at that time, what, if any, harassment was there in relation to that and in relation to Colin?
Well,
Objection.
No, go ahead. She can answer.
Colin wasn't at the house, so he's being harassed for. He was not at the house when John was there, so I drove him home. So the people are harassing him, saying he was at the house when it's not true.
When you speak about harassment, what specifically type of harassment?
Phone call, constant phone calls, emails, awful messages.
Objection.
I'll allow it. Focus on this witness, not Colin Albert at this point.
As far as you and your family, what, if any, type of harassment have you received?
People showing up at our house, people emailing my school.
The fake tears.
Just like a lot of harassment. Can I have a moment?
Sure.
I don't buy it. I don't believe it. We're going to see fake tears from Jen McCabe as well. Ay, ay, ay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm not sympathetic to these families, to anybody in the
How long
cave.
period of time has that persisted for?
A very long time.
Thank you. I have no further.
I have no further.
So she just had to get in that whole witness intimidation BS. All right, so we are going to move on. That was basically the cross of McCabe, Allison McCabe, her name, just totally blanking on it. All right, we're going to move on to Matt McCabe's testimony. We're going to listen again basically to his cross just to hear him get impeached by I think it's Yannetti again too. I can't remember who's crossing him. And then, so for part two, this is part one. So for part two, we're going to get into Jen McCabe's cross. So, and look at the inconsistencies and things that she testified to. So that'll be an upcoming episode after she testifies, because she's going to be testifying Tuesday morning. There is no court Monday. So everything will continue Tuesday morning. All right, so now let's get into
Your wife then.
Matt McCabe. So this is Matthew McCabe, father of Allie McCabe, husband of Jen McCabe, and we're going to listen to his testimony. So this gets a little spicy, so dive in.
Leaves with Ms. Reed, is that correct?
That is correct.
This is boring
Uh,
here.
it,
From the blinds, you can see the defendant's car and the defendant outside. Was it light out? Was it dark out? What are we talking about?
it was dark out. Wife. When I got to Fairview, I had come down through the Chapman Street entrance. It was all blocked.
During your drive from your home over to Fairview, Officer Lang was there, is that correct?
That's correct.
Recall if there was any other
Sorry.
ins, do you know if there was
And who left when, and where people sat at which table. We're going to skip all that, and I'd like to streamline the questioning if I can.
This is a total dig at Lolly when Yannetti gets up. Let's listen to that.
During that hour span of time, they appeared to be enjoying each other's company,
Yes,
and the two of them had arrived together, correct?
they walked in together. Yes,
And there were no problems that night that you could see between John and Karen, correct?
yes, I did not see any problems.
Okay. Now, moving on to the waterfall on January 29th. I am not going to go through with you who arrived when and who left when and where people sat at which table. We're going to skip all that, and I'd like to streamline the questioning if I can. And I just want to talk to you about
Total dig at Lolly because he has been wasting our time and putting us all to sleep. In the most exciting trial of the century, Lolly puts us to sleep. Pretty bad.
2 or 3 areas. You would agree that at the waterfall, the mood among the people who were there was festive, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Everybody appeared to be happy and enjoying themselves, correct?
Everybody was enjoying each other's company. Correct.
Specifically with regard to John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, they appeared to be quite happy that Kaylee had been accepted into Bishop Feehan, correct?
John,
John's niece, and we heard this on Michael Camerano's testimony, that his daughter and John's niece were the same age. They were good friends, and they both got into this special school, like for gifted children, and it was like a private school, and they were both really excited, and they were out celebrating that night. Word has it that O'Keefe's parents have custody of the children, the niece and nephew, and she has not gone forward with letting her go to this school. She's making her go to public school, which is, I think, extremely unfortunate. If this child has an opportunity to get a better education, she should absolutely go for it. And I don't know why, but I believe it was at Jen McCabe's request or suggestion not to send the girls there. But um, I don't know. I don't know what the motivation is. I do know that Karen was helping to pay for some of the school as well. So that might have been part of why they don't like Karen. I don't know. I really don't know why the family chose to distance themselves from Karen, but I think it has a lot to do with these McAlberts.
I recall talking to John about it, and he was happy that Kaylee was at Bishop Feehan. I do not recall speaking to Karen about Bishop Feehan, but definitely John was happy about Kaylee being in Bishop Feehan.
All right. You have previously testified that they were both excited about that, have you not?
If I did, I did. I just know that John mentioned that he was out because he was excited about Kaylee being at Bishop Feehan. If I looped them both,
But you couldn't say that Karen was excited about it. Karen was in this man's life for 2 years, especially even during COVID, and she was helping with the homeschooling of the children while COVID was happening because John, a police officer, couldn't work from home. So Karen did. Karen could work from home and she took care of the children during this time. So for them to act like Karen wasn't involved in these kids' lives or acting almost like, in regard to the relationship like a mom to these kids. I really think there was a whole lot of jealousy by the meanie moms that were in this town. The McCabe Albert people are the meanie moms, And I think there was a lot of jealousy because Karen was successful. John was the good looking bachelor of the town that a lot of women liked. He had some female fans. So I don't know. I think Jen McCabe might have been one of them too.
In, and they both were happy. I don't remember what I said when I said it. I didn't put it this way. I didn't see her. She wasn't happy about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I'm just going by your words, sir. As far as you could see, they were both excited about her acceptance, correct?
Yes, yes.
And they had just found out the previous day or so, correct?
I don't recall what day they found out, but I know that John mentioned he had went out for some beers. He was excited because Kaylee got into Bishop Fian, and he mentioned he was out with another one of his friends whose daughter also got into Bishop Fian.
Right. And it appeared to be new news, correct?
Oh, yes. It was news they were waiting on, yes.
Right. You hadn't heard it before. This was the first that you heard it, correct?
I don't know if I heard it, if a kid had already leaked it the day before or that day, but first I heard it from John.
All right. But it was clear to you that it was really important to John O'Keefe that Kaylee get into Bishop Fian and go there, correct?
They applied. He was excited for her to go there.
And it was clear that he believed it was an achievement for her, correct?
Yes.
And you could glean also that John O'Keefe felt like it was an achievement for him as well, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Did you glean that from him?
He was happy that she got in. I don't know what if he felt it was his achievement. He was happy for Kaylee.
Of course. And he was doing right by his sister's daughter, correct?
Objection.
I don't know what that means. They can go to any school and do right.
All right. In any case, everything seemed good that night.
Everything was good.
There were no arguments.
There were no arguments that I saw.
John was drinking beer.
In my recollection, yes.
And you had previously testified that you saw.
These people make me mad and they're very evil. Matt's the dope, but he's also kind of evil. He's just the dope that's still like reciting the storyline that his wife is telling him. I think Jen McCabe and Brian Albert were the masterminds in this. Masterminds. I don't know how you could say they're masterminds. Brian Albert at least was like, I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything, whereas the McCabes had to be witnesses and they had to see things, and I think they've put their foot in their mouths many times.
Karen was drinking some type of clear liquid that you assumed was some type of vodka drink, correct?
That is correct.
But you didn't think that they were drinking much, correct?
At the waterfall? No, they were only there for an hour. So
Right. And they got there around 11, correct?
give or take, yep, 11ish.
And that bar is pretty strict about last call, correct?
That is correct.
And you spoke with both of them during the course of the night, correct?
Yes.
Neither John nor Karen was intoxicated in your view, correct?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
They were drinking. I don't know what the guideline of intoxication is, but they were drinking.
Do you recall testifying before the grand jury regarding this matter on April 26th of 2022?
If you have that, then I don't recall that question specific, but yes.
Right. Well, I didn't ask about the questions. I just asked if you recall testifying before the grand jury on that date.
He has a really hard time answering the question that's in front of him because he's trying to evade answering it.
I don't remember the date. I recall testifying before the grand jury.
Oh, if I suggested to you that it was April 26th of 2022, would you quarrel with that?
No, did you say would I quarrel?
Yeah.
No, it was definitely around that time.
Okay. And at that grand jury presentation, Mr. Lally was there, correct?
Yes.
None of the defense team was there, correct?
No.
Karen Reed was not there, correct?
No.
And there was no judge there, correct?
No.
And April 26th was approximately 3 months after January 29th of 2022?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that your memory about whether or not John and or Karen was intoxicated would have been better on April 26th of 2022 than it would be today?
May we approach, Your Honor?
All right, I'll see you later.
Oh, poor Lolly. He doesn't know what to do when his witness is about to be impeached, so he's got to go talk to the judge. Unbelievable. That is Paul O'Keefe right here. He keeps staring at poor Karen. That's pretty gross.
Yes.
I had just asked you if your memory of your observations of Karen Reed and John O'Keefe from January 29th would have been better on April 26th of 2022 than it would be today.
Yes, I think that's fair to say.
And that's because your memory doesn't get better over time, correct?
I don't know. I would say it's fair to say, yes, my memory would be better that day.
And on that day, you were asked by Mr. Lally, quote, did either of them, strike that. I'm going to go back to the previous sentence just to put it in context.
Yes.
The previous sentence was from Mr. Lally, obviously you've had social occasions with Mr. O'Keefe and Ms. Reed before, correct? And your answer was, oh, yes, right?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm going to let that one go.
My answer is yes. I had previous. I don't know if I said, oh, yes, but my answer was yes. Of course, I had previous relationships with them.
I'm sorry, I cut you off, sir. I don't
I'm saying, of course, I had previous relationships with them.
And the question that I wanted to direct you to, just to put it in context, was did either of them, speaking about John and Karen, on this particular evening seem sort of overly intoxicated to you? Do you recall that question?
I don't recall the specific question, but that's the question.
And your answer was no to that?
Yes, if that's my answer, then it was no.
All right. In terms of whether you can confirm that that was the question and answer, if I showed you the transcript, would that refresh your memory?
Yes, of course it would.
This is 2103, lines 13 to 15 for counsel. And I didn't ask permission, I'm sorry. Correct?
Yes, you did.
Okay. Just a couple more things about the waterfall. I wanted to ask you about Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, sir.
Yes.
They were both there that night while you were there, correct?
Yes, they both were there.
And they are both pretty big guys, correct?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
Yes, they're good sized guys.
Did you see Brian Albert and Brian Higgins practicing fighting at the waterfall?
Practicing fighting?
Right. Did you see them kind of square up in a fighting stance to each other?
I recall them grabbing each other. I don't recall them squaring up like they were fighting each other. No, they were playing a little grab ass with each other. I did see them grab each other. I don't recall a physical, hey, let's go, duke it out. I do not recall that.
Okay, so are you saying...
They have been playing grab ass in the bar. That's what he just said. Grab ass.
Taking you literally that they grabbed each other's asses? Is that it?
No, I'm saying grab ass. It's a figure of speech.
Okay, but what they didn't grab each other. They were in a fighting stance, weren't they? Didn't they crouch down low with each other?
I'm telling you, I don't recall seeing them crouching in a fighting stance. I recall someone grabbing somebody. I don't remember who grabbed who. I just recall like a bear hug or something. I thought I recall them doing a bear hug.
All right, so you recall them, one of them getting behind the other one and kind of restraining them or grabbing them?
I think there was a bear hug, yeah. That's what's in my memory.
And you would agree with me that after closing time, Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were two of the people who went back to 34 Fairview Road, the Albert home, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But before everyone left, before you left, it was announced around the table that everyone was welcome back at Brian Albert and Nicole Albert's house, correct?
Yes.
Karen Reed and John O'Keefe were both there when that invitation was announced, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that it was expected that Karen Reed and John O'Keefe would go to the Albert home that night, correct?
If they wanted to come, they were welcome, yes.
And that plan would have been for them to go inside the Albert home, correct?
Yes.
Do you recall what time you left the waterfall?
I left the waterfall after midnight, give or take 12:10, 12:15-ish. I don't know the exact specific time. Well, a little before 12:15, but definitely 12:10-ish, 12:15-ish in there.
And you were one of the last to leave the waterfall?
Yes, as I mentioned, Nick Kolakisis and I walked out together from the waterfall.
Your wife, Jennifer McCabe, had walked out of the bar physically before you did, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you actually met her in the parking lot?
She was already in the vehicle in the parking lot, correct?
And then you got into the car to drive to the Albert's home, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So I'm going to ask you about the ride back to the Albert's home in a bit, but right now I want to skip to when you got there, okay?
Okay.
When you first got there, your wife parked your vehicle in the driveway, correct?
Yes.
Which side of the driveway did she park your vehicle in?
As I mentioned yesterday, I don't recall if it was immediately on the left, meaning the left towards the lawn, or if she was in the next spot over. She pulled in. I don't remember exactly if it was here or one spot over, but she pulled
in
in.
the driveway at that time?
At least two. I don't recall if there was more than two.
So if there was at least two, those two would have been parked abutting the garage area? In other words, would they be... Let me rephrase. So there are two lanes in that driveway, correct?
My recollection is two lanes, but there is more space I know when we go over, we've gone over, there's more space to kind of park three cars
right?
to the right, correct.
Okay.
But we weren't to the right. We were either left or middle.
You were behind one vehicle, whichever lane you were in, or were you pulled right up to one of the garage entrances?
I don't recall if we pulled all the way in or not, but I don't remember.
So there were at least two vehicles in the driveway before you got there, correct?
In the driveway?
Yes.
Yes, there were cars in the driveway.
And when you parked in the driveway, fair to say that there was no black SUV at the Albert's home?
Are you referencing Karen's SUV? I don't know what color the Albert's cars were.
Oh, okay.
Are you referencing their SUV?
Put it this way. Yes, I'm referencing Karen's SUV.
That was not at the home.
And that was not in the driveway, correct?
Karen's SUV was not in the driveway.
And it was not adjacent to the property or on the street anywhere that you could see?
Correct. It was not there.
But you say that there was a Jeep in the street at that time, correct?
There was a Jeep parked in front of the end of the driveway in front of the mailbox.
Only a few witnesses remember a Jeep and said that Higgins had a Jeep. But the majority of people, and this is the first time we're hearing about a Jeep being parked outside, is in trial, where all the other court docs and everything have just been telling us that um, it was just Ryan Nagel's car and Karen's car. So now there's a Jeep too, which came out of nowhere.
And that Jeep belonged to Brian Higgins.
I found out it belonged to Brian Higgins. I didn't know it was his Jeep when I arrived.
And it had a plow on the front of it.
Yes, it did.
It was parked adjacent to the Alberts property on Fairview, facing up the hill toward Chapman Street, correct?
Yes.
And at the time that you arrived, that was the only vehicle that was parked on Fairview Street adjacent to the Albert property, correct?
Yes.
And your testimony is that that Jeep remained parked in front of the Albert house, just to the left of the driveway as you faced the house, until Brian Higgins finally left and drove it away at the end of the night, correct?
That's my recollection, was his Jeep was out in front of the mailbox.
With the court's permission, could we display Exhibit 66?
Okay.
So, Mr. McCabe, I'm highlighting for the spotlight the front of the Alberts home. When I get to the point where the Jeep was parked, can you stop me? And you can adjust it right or left if I go too far.
Objection, Your Honor.
Can we have him use the laser pointer first and then?
Sure. Hope you're better than I
No,
am. May I, Coach?
I was hoping I didn't have to do
you have a laser
this.
pointer.
I don't have one.
That's fine.
No.
Of the Jeep would have.
On the edge of the driveway, right there. I believe it was a two-door Jeep.
Okay, it looks like a part of the Jeep would have been blocking the driveway.
No, where the mailbox is, the Jeep was right there. It was not blocking the driveway.
The I'm just gonna
Sure.
the mailbox that's spotlighted there, would that have been where the back of the Jeep was?
Yeah, the back would have been right in the vicinity of the edge of the driveway in the mailbox.
I see. So it wasn't blocking the driveway at all when you saw it?
No,
And it was facing to the left as we look at Exhibit 66, correct?
facing, heading to the left of the house, correct.
We can have the lights back on.
Higgins go outside and move his Jeep.
About 5 minutes after you got to the Albert home that night, you saw a black SUV parked outside the home, correct?
Yes, again, I don't know the exact minutes, but give or take, 4 or 5 minutes.
And when you saw that black SUV parked outside the Albert home, Higgins' Jeep was still there, correct?
Yes, to my recollection, the Jeep was still outside in front of the mailbox.
The black SUV was parked in front of Higgins' Jeep with the plow on the front, correct?
That's correct.
How far or close to that Jeep was the black SUV?
I don't recall the exact distance. Again, when I looked outside, I noticed my focus was on the black SUV, which looked outside would have been in front of the front door.
With regard to the distance between the Jeep and the black SUV, was it greater or smaller than the distance between you and me right now?
Oh, it'd be smaller. If I'm the end of the other, if you're the end of the Jeep and I'm the end of the
Let's say that I'm the
Lexus,
rear end of the black SUV, and you're the front end of the Jeep.
yeah, I'd say you'd be a little closer to me.
With the court's permission, may I walk closer to the witness so that he could give an estimate?
Sure.
I was focused on the SUV. I wasn't focused on the Jeep or the truck. I don't know the exact distance. You could walk 3 more feet or 3 feet that way, but it was out in front of the house. That's all I can tell you.
You will agree with me that you've given conflicting information about where the black SUV was when you first saw it?
If you tell me I gave conflicting information, you can show it to me. I don't recall. I've always said the SUV was in front of the house.
Right. And when you said in front of the house, you meant that as you look out the front door of the Albert residence, which on Exhibit 66 would have been the door to the left, that's the classic front door?
The classic front door looking at the house on the main part of the Colonial.
Looking straight out from there, that's where the black SUV was positioned, correct?
In that vicinity, correct.
Right. It would have been sort of directly in front of you as you look out that front door, correct?
Like I said, in the vicinity of looking out the front door was the black SUV. If it was 3 feet this way or 3 feet this way or 3 feet that way, I don't know. It was just out in front of the house.
Right. And that was where it was when you first spotted it, according to your testimony today, correct?
Yes.
But you spoke to Michael Proctor.
Why can't he just give an answer? Like, if it's in your memory of where it was, like, you would see it in your mind's eye and say it was, like, straight ahead or it was over here. You know what I'm saying? You would not be like, well, it could have been over here or over here or over here. Like, you don't give all the possibilities if you're telling the truth. That's why I think he's making it up.
During the afternoon of January 29th, did you not?
Yes, I did.
That was the very day that these events occurred, correct?
Yes, it was.
You would agree with me that your memory of where that black SUV was when you first spotted it on January 29th would have been better on that very day than it would be today, correct?
Possibly, yes.
It's almost 2.5 years later,
2.5 years that have lived in my memory, yes.
but your memory does not get better over time, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
On January 29th of 2022, when you spoke to Michael Proctor, you told him that you saw a black SUV parked to the right of the residence as you look at the property from the street. Did you not?
I did not. Can you elaborate what you mean by to the right of the residence?
Well,
Michael Proctor, who is the lead investigator of this case, he just got everybody's statements wrong, apparently. Either he made them up or these people didn't say those or did say those things. So I don't know. What do you guys decide? Or Michael Proctor just made it up.
I will just repeat the question. Did you tell Michael Proctor on January 29th of 2022 that you observed a big dark SUV parked to the right of the house?
What right? Looking at the house to the right, or looking at the house to the left? When you say right, I don't know what you mean by right.
Is your memory exhausted as to what you told Michael Proctor?
No, not at all.
So
He keeps saying no because if Yannetti asked that question, is your memory exhausted? He could say yes, and then Yannetti would be like, okay, well, then let me refresh your memory, and he could impeach him by showing him something. So he keeps saying no when Yannetti is like, is your memory exhausted?
if your memory is not exhausted, would you agree with me that while you were at 34 Fairview, you told Michael Proctor that you observed a big dark SUV parked to the right of the house?
That could have been the second time I informed him of seeing the SUV.
Okay. If I suggested to you that that was the first time, according to what you told Michael Proctor, would you dispute that?
Objection.
Sustained.
Is your memory exhausted as to whether or not that was the first or second time, according to what you told Michael Proctor?
My memory is not exhausted.
Okay, so if your memory is not exhausted, do you deny telling Michael Proctor that you observed a big dark SUV parked to the right of the house?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
I don't know if I can answer it. I believe it's the second question.
All right.
I told him I saw an SUV and parked in front of the house. Then I saw an SUV move further up the road, which looking out of the house would be to the right of the house. So that would be when I saw the SUV to the right of the house, would be the second time I saw the SUV.
What?
I've always stated the SUV was in front of the house if looking out the front.
I saw it on the left of the house, which would be the right of the house. What? It's not making any sense.
Okay, so when you talked, so you deny telling Michael Proctor that when you first saw the SUV. By the way, sir, is this funny? I'm sorry.
This is not funny, sir. Not at all. It's been 2 years.
Sorry, I don't mean to talk over. He's smiling and smirking, and he can't answer a question straight, and he's acting like this is fun for him.
Second time I saw the SUV. I've always stated the SUV was in front of the house if looking out the front door.
Okay, so when you talked, so you deny telling Michael Proctor that when you first saw the SUV. By the way, sir, is this funny? I'm sorry.
This is not funny, sir. Not at all. It's been 2 years of misery.
Okay, you're smiling now. That's why I asked.
You keep repeating the same question.
Well, I'm trying to get an answer that you won't give me, sir. When you talked to Michael Proctor on January 29th of 2022, when you first observed the big dark SUV, you said to him it was parked to the right of the house.
Objection.
This is the last time on that question. Is that right?
That is not right. The SUV, the first time was in front of the house, coming out the front door. The second time was it was to the right of the house.
All right.
You have to move on.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So you did not say that, but you did say that you were making those observations from the front door, correct?
As I stated yesterday, I recall.
That's a yes or no question. I'm sorry.
Objection, Your Honor.
Can you answer it yes or no?
I can't. I said yesterday it's either I looked out the window and I looked out the front door. I don't remember which order.
I can't answer a yes or no. Come on, buddy. He just has to be confusing.
Well, you told Michael Proctor that the first time you looked out, it was out the front door. Did you not?
I don't recall when I told Michael Proctor on April.
You don't recall. May I approach you on
Yes.
page 2
That's
of
what
Proctor's?
he needed him to say. If you don't remember, then say you don't remember so that he can show you your words. You're just making yourself look like a bigger fool by being like, well, I could have said it. I don't know if I said it. It could have been the first time. It could have been the second time. I don't know. It could have been. You're just making yourself look like an idiot. Sorry, but you are.
So next time, just show it to me.
Of course, I'm sorry. You'd read the first few sentences of that second paragraph.
Second paragraph.
You had said that you don't remember what you told Michael Proctor. Did that report refresh your memory?
I'm not saying I don't remember what I told Michael Proctor.
Well, hold
I'm
on.
stating what I remember.
Hold on a second, sir. You just told this jury that you don't remember what you told Michael Proctor. Those were your words.
Yes, at the point I'm reading, I don't remember the exact wording, but I know what I told Michael Proctor.
All right. And you told Michael Proctor that you observed a big dark SUV parked to the right of the house. Did you not?
At some point in the conversation, yes, I told Michael Proctor that a big dark SUV moved to the right of the house.
Moved to the right of the house? Is that what you just said?
All right, let me rephrase. At some point, there was a big dark SUV parked in front of the right of the house. I physically didn't see it move, so I need to rephrase. I can't say move.
But what I'm I'm concentrating on now, sir, is not what your memory is today or what you testified to the jury today. I'm concentrating on what you told Michael Proctor that very day on January 29th, 2022. Okay? And you initially told him that it was parked to the right of the house, the big dark SUV, and that you made those observations from the front door. And then you stated,
He won't admit it. He's just shaking his head like, no, I didn't say that when he just showed you what you said. But he's denying it. And he's sitting there going, like being an obstinate little, I don't know.
you looked out the front window
Objection, Your Honor.
and observed the same big dark SUV had moved to the other side of the property.
So
Correct?
the objection sustained. You have to break that down, and I thought we moved on from this, Mr. Yu.
No, we haven't gotten to the second part of the...
So bring the document. I'll see you at sidebar.
Oh my goodness, another sidebar. There's John O'Keefe's mother. I think she's been at every hearing. Those are Karen's parents right there on camera.
Oh, thank you very much.
One last question on this, Mr. Yu.
Yes, with regard to Trooper Proctor's report that you have in front of you, right? It's I for identification.
Yes, I'm reading the
You will agree with me that you reported your conversation as saying that the vehicle was first to the right and then moved to the other side of the property, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You testified before the grand jury regarding this issue on April 26th of 2022, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And you talked about the vehicle moving from point A to point B, correct?
Yes, at some point.
And you estimated that it was 15 to 20 feet or so that the SUV moved along the property line, correct?
Yes, again, I don't know the exact distance, but estimates.
And at that point in time, you were asked to clarify what you had meant when you said that the vehicle was first on the right side of the property. Do you recall that testimony?
I do not.
Do you recall that Mr. Lally asked you, to the right would have been toward the driveway side of the property, and that you answered that's correct?
I don't remember the conversation. And again, to the right looking at the house or to the right looking out of the house?
Well, that's what I'm talking about. To the right, looking at the house would be toward the driveway. Correct?
To the right looking at the house would be toward the driveway, correct?
And that's your testimony where the vehicle started out, correct? And then moved toward the flagpole the second time?
The vehicle started in front of the house and moved towards the flagpole, correct. So looking out of the house, it moved towards the right.
Now, excuse me. That initially it was parked closer to the driveway or the mailbox when you first saw it, correct?
Objection.
Objection sustained. We're moving off of this, Mr.
Okay, yes, Your Honor. Wherever it was when you first saw it, where was the Jeep in relation to that black SUV when you first laid eyes on the black SUV?
Again, I was focused on the black SUV. My recollection, the Jeep was still in the same spot, which we had pointed out earlier on the exhibit.
Correct? And the Bluetooth of the car was connected to her phone, correct?
I believe the Bluetooth was on. Again, I could hear his conversation.
Yeah.
My assumption is the Bluetooth was on.
Right. You could hear both sides of the conversation, correct?
I could hear John as well, yes.
Yeah, your wife and John, correct?
Yes, I was sitting next to my wife. I could hear her.
And you heard John tell your wife that he was planning to go to 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
He had told your wife in your presence that he and Karen would meet your wife and you there, correct?
He said we're on our way.
Right. And you knew, again, the plan was to go inside 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes, that was the plan.
You heard your wife tell John that 34 Fairview is off Chapman Street, correct?
Either I was also talking, so I don't know if my wife was repeating, but yes, we did say off at Chapman
It
Street.
could have been you, could have been your wife, but he was
Yes.
told it was off Chapman Street, right?
That's correct, yes.
And then your wife hung up with John, at least temporarily, but then John called back, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
He indicated he needed more specific directions to 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
And then you heard your wife, or maybe you participated in the conversation, I won't rule that out, but between the two of you, you did give him more specific directions, correct?
Yes, we did.
And either you or your wife, and you can correct me if you know if it's one or the other, but one of you told him to go down Chapman and take Fairview as if they were going to Bella's house, correct?
Yes, we had mentioned go down Chapman to Fairview, so you know where Bella lives, drive past Bella's Street.
Just realized I was muted. I'm so frustrated. My dogs will not sit down. Sorry. So he is, I'm getting really annoyed with them because I have to keep muting them and now I'm muted myself. All right. So Bella is a friend of the niece, and the mother of Bella, Ashley, apparently had some kind of physical, intimate thing with John a few times, and that was it. And so they're trying to make it seem like this is the motive now because Jen McCabe is going to make it seem like Karen asked, well, could he be at Bella's house? So trying to make it seem like there's some jealousy going on there.
The house will come up when you left.
Right, and I believe you previously explained that Bella was a friend of John's niece, Kaylee, and also your daughter, Olivia, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
That was a good way to orient him as to where to go, correct?
Yes.
And once you did that, John O'Keefe never called back for any clarification, correct?
Yes, not to my recollection.
All right, and with regard to your state of mind, based on that conversation and the instructions that either you or your wife or both of you gave John, you certainly assumed that John and Karen would be arriving at Fairview coming from the Chapman Street direction, correct?
That was my assumption. As I stated yesterday, there's multiple ways to go, but that was my assumption.
And it was an educated assumption based on the conversation that you had, correct?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
Okay.
Finding him
Thank you.
document. I have handed you something. If you could take a look and tell the jury whether you recognize what that depicts.
Yes, this is a map showing Cedar Crest Road intersecting with Fairview Road. On the opposite side shows Chapman Street intersecting with Fairview, as well as other streets in it's called the Cedar Crest neighborhood, in the Cedar Crest neighborhood.
Okay. And realizing that you don't have a compass or a ruler, does it appear to be generally to scale in terms of where the roads are?
Yes.
And it appears to be a fair and accurate depiction of the layouts of particularly Cedar Crest, Fairview, and Chapman Street?
Yes.
Okay, I would offer that, Your Honor.
Is there any objection? Exhibit 86. And Mr. McCabe, why don't we hand over the other one? Oh, thank you.
Well, what is displayed on the screen, Mr. McCabe, does that appear to be what I just showed you in Exhibit 88?
Yes.
You see that there's a red bubble there. Does that have any meaning to you as you look at the map?
Yes, it'd be the location of 34 Fairview.
Okay. And as we look at the map, Cedar Crest is up the top and Chapman is down the bottom?
That is correct.
With regard to the directions that you gave, or you or your wife gave John O'Keefe, if they were coming as you directed them.
So this is Cedar Crest right here. This is Fairview, and you can't see it, but Chapman just comes barely, like it comes, you can just see the bottom of Chapman right there, and it comes under the screen. Like you're not going to see where it is on the screen, but that's where Fairview is.
On Chapman Street, would they be taking a right onto Fairview or a left?
If they went the way that we mentioned, they'd be taking a left.
Okay, so in terms of looking at this map, they'd be traveling on Chapman Street really from the left to the right as you look at Exhibit 88, correct?
Yes, left to right, correct.
And that would allow them to take a left down Fairview, heading towards Cedar Crest, correct?
That is correct.
And you would agree with me that that would put the driver's side closest to the Albert property if they just kept going straight all the way to Cedar Crest, correct?
Yes, the driver's side would have been closest to the property.
We can turn the lights back on. That would mean, well, strike that. So you agree with me that your state of mind was that was the direction that they would go?
That's what I thought they would have, that's how I thought they would have come into the neighborhood, correct.
But you never saw the black SUV traveling in that direction or parked in that direction, correct?
That's correct.
That would mean that in order for the SUV to be facing in the other direction, one way would be for it to make a three-point turn, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
So we're saying if they came down from Chapman and then spun around and facing back up towards Chapman, is what you're asking? Yes, at some point she would have had to turn around.
Or do a three-point turn, correct?
She could do a three-point turn, or she could just loop around at Cedar Crest and come back up. Either one.
Right. And a three-point turn would be consistent with what the V-shaped tire tracks that you saw when you looked out the front of Brian Albert's house, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
When you were interviewed by Michael Proctor on January 29th of 2022, you had not spoken with Ryan Nagel, correct?
No.
So it's fair to say you did not know what, if anything, Ryan Nagel had seen in terms of how or what direction the black SUV arrived in, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
When you spoke to Michael Proctor on January 29th of 2022, the phone conversation that your wife had with John O'Keefe that you were either participating in or listening to, that was regarding the directions. That was fresh in your mind on January 29th, correct?
Yeah.
Those directions had just been given to John, the night before or really hours before, correct?
Yes.
So on January 29th, when you're talking to Michael Proctor, believing that John had driven down Chapman Street, you were trying to square in your own mind how the vehicle wound up in the other direction when you looked out the house, correct?
Objection.
Were you?
Can you just repeat that again?
Yeah,
I think I heard you. I just want to make
It
sure.
wasn't a great question. I'll see if I can make it any better. You're talking with Michael Proctor on January 29th in the afternoon, correct?
Yes.
And he's asking you about the positioning of the black SUV, among other things, correct?
Yes.
Again, I'm just getting to your state of mind. Your state of mind was that you gave the direction, you or your wife gave the directions to John, and you're thinking he came down Chapman, but you never saw the vehicle in that direction. It was only in the other direction facing toward Chapman. Is that fair?
Yes.
And so you're naturally trying to square in your own mind, trying to make it make sense as to how that happened, correct?
Objection.
You can answer that. Were you trying to square that in your own mind?
I wasn't trying to. I don't know if I was trying to square it. I just knew that for some reason her vehicle was facing up Chapman. Are you asking? I didn't know what she did. I just know her vehicle was facing up Chapman.
And to you, that was the significance of the V-shaped tire tracks when you're talking to Proctor, right?
Objection.
Was it?
If I recall, I said there was a V-shaped tire tracks, and I believe the question was, could it be consistent with a three-point turn? I said it could be. I didn't know if it was a three-point turn. It could be because there was weird tracks. Again, I did not see the vehicle. I don't know if she pulled in the driveway and turned. I don't know if she went to Cedar Crest and turned. I don't know if she did a three-point turn and turned. I have no idea.
All right, but just one last question on this three-point turn. You offered the V-shaped tire tracks as an explanation for what could have happened, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
He said in his original statement that he saw V-shaped tire tracks, but he takes it back or kind of backtracks from saying that now. So, which is it?
I had stated there was a V-shaped tire tracks. I didn't say it was a three-point turn.
All right, well, you'd agree with me in any case that if John and Karen entered from Cedar Crest and you saw them where you saw them, there'd be no need for a three-point turn, correct?
So you're saying if she didn't come from Chapman, she came from the other side, Cedar Crest, there would be no need for a three-point turn or any type of turn because she was already facing that way.
That's right. If she came from Cedar Crest, she's already in the very direction that you saw the black SUV when you looked out, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, your testimony during this trial is that you were looking straight out from the house to the street. And, again, I understand your qualification. You could have been 3 feet this way or 3 feet that way. But your memory is that the car was essentially right in front of you, give or take, the first time you saw it.
My memory is the car was right in front of the front door.
Yes, okay. And you were looking straight at it, correct?
As I had stated earlier, the first time I looked out, I don't recall if I was looking straight out from the front door or if I was peeking out through the window, but my sight would have had it lined up in front of the front door. So if I looked out from the front door, then it would have been, yes, straight in front of me.
And you would agree with me that when you were looking at the vehicle, from wherever you were looking at it, you were looking straight over the front lawn, correct?
I would have been looking over the lawn, correct? Again,
And
I was focused on the
tire
vehicle.
tracks were
Hold on, Mr.
Sorry,
Netti.
I said I was focused on the vehicle. I was focused.
I didn't know that he was not done with his answer.
My fault.
We only can have one person speaking at a time. The court reporter can't be expected to have two different people at the same time. So please be cautious. The lawyer needs to be cautious of that.
I will try, Your Honor. Did you get your full answer out, sir?
I did.
Okay. You would agree with me that the V-shaped tire tracks were farther away from you than the front lawn?
Yes, they were on the road.
And if you were able to clearly see those V-shaped tire tracks, you certainly were able to clearly see the Albert's front lawn, correct?
As I mentioned, I was looking over the lawn, but I'm assuming the lawn was.
I didn't see the lawn. I was looking past the lawn, so I didn't see the lawn. I wouldn't have noticed a man laying there unconscious. Are you crazy?
Somehow in my visibility, I wasn't focusing on the lawn.
Okay. I'm going to try that question again and see if I can get a yes or no answer. If you were able to clearly see the V-shaped tire tracks, you were certainly able to clearly see the Albert's front lawn, correct?
If I looked at it, it's a confusing question. As I said, I was focused on the road. I wasn't looking at the lawn.
But let me be clear. I'm not asking you if you looked at it. I asked if you were able to clearly see it.
I would be able to, yes.
And when you looked out at that black SUV and saw the V-shaped tire tracks, you did not see a 6'2" man lying on the front lawn, correct?
No, I did not.
And at no point in time, whenever you looked at that black SUV, did you see John O'Keefe inside the vehicle, correct?
No, I did not see John in the vehicle.
At no point in time did you hear any yelling outside 34 Fairview, correct?
No, I did not.
At no point in time did you hear any scream of pain outside 34 Fairview, correct?
No, I didn't.
At no point in time did you ever hear any crash noises outside 34 Fairview.
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No.
And last question on this point, at no point did you hear any noises at all outside 34 Fairview that attracted your attention.
No, there's music playing in the house, so I didn't hear anything.
Oh, okay.
Now, after being at the
Yeah, music in the house. So, as you can see, he his lack of wanting to answer things and then just trying to be difficult in like the meaning of words and whatnot. I don't know. It just feels like he's picking apart Yanetti's questions and um, twisting words for his advantage or something. That's kind of that's how I saw Albert, Brian Albert, and Colin Albert too. Well, Colin Albert more of, huh? I don't know. I don't understand. I don't recall.
Albert home for a period of time early that morning. You left the home approximately 1:40 a.m. or so,
Yeah, give or take 1:40, 1:45. I don't know the exact time.
and you walked out with your wife, Jennifer McCabe, and two of Brian Jr.'s friends, correct?
Yes, Brian's two friends were joining Jennifer and I. We were driving them home.
And whether you knew their names or not that night, you subsequently learned their names to be Sarah Levinson and Julie Nagel.
That's correct.
And you all came out of the house together, correct?
Yeah, I don't recall who was where when we walked to the car, but we all left the house at the same time.
And directly in front of all of you was the front lawn, correct?
If I was to walk straight out the front door, yes, the front lawn's in front of me.
And when you were walking out, the black SUV was gone, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And when you first came out of the house facing that front lawn, you didn't see a black baseball cap, correct?
That's correct.
Or a black sneaker, correct?
That's correct.
Or 45 pieces of red plastic tail light, correct?
That's correct.
Or even one, correct?
That's correct.
And once again, you didn't see a 6'2" man lying on the front lawn, correct?
No, I wish I did, but I didn't.
I wish
As you were walking,
I did. Did he steal that from Brian Albert, who had also said, I wish I did, or I wish they had come into the house, but they didn't? Or what else did he say? Something he wished he had. I can't remember. He said it twice in his testimony, and now he's saying it too.
walking out with your wife and these two other women, none of them yelled that they saw anything like that, correct?
Correct.
And then you all piled into the vehicle, which was in the driveway, correct?
Yes.
You and your wife got into the front, the driver's seat, and the passenger seat, correct?
Yes, I sat in the driver's seat. My wife was in the passenger seat. I had to brush off the car, but that's where we sat.
And the other two women who were friends with Brian Jr. got into the second row passenger seat, correct?
Yes.
And I believe your testimony is you don't know who was where within that, but they did get in there.
Yes, they were behind us. I don't know who sat in what seat.
Once you got inside the vehicle, is that when you realized that you had left something back into the house?
I don't recall leaving something in the house.
I'm sorry?
I don't recall.
So Julie Nagel, who got picked, or who had called her brother for a ride and then changed her mind for a ride and then went home anyways, and about an hour later with the McCabes, she said that Matt McCabe went back in to grab something. I think a coat or something. I don't remember what she said. He went to go grab it. She said he went back in the house. Now he's saying he doesn't remember going in the house.
Recall leaving something in the house. I don't. If I did, I did. I don't recall leaving something in the house.
You don't recall going back into the house?
No, I don't recall going back in the house.
If you went back into the house, the front lawn would have been directly in front of you from the driveway, correct?
The lawn would have been to my left, and I would have went up the walkway to the house.
Okay, well, that's my next question. When you went up the walkway, the front lawn would have been to your left, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then coming out, you would have had the same view that you'd had the first time, correct?
Yes, I would have come back out the same way down the steps to the left.
And without going through all the various items that I asked you about in terms of not seeing on the front lawn, the speaker, the cap, the tail light, etc., you didn't see any of that stuff at any point the second time, correct?
Correct. I did not see anything.
Okay, so now you're finally back in your vehicle and you are backing out of the driveway, correct?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that to get to your, well, strike that. Is it fair to say that to drop the women off, your plan was to head toward Chapman Street?
Yes, that's what we did.
Which would mean that as you back out of the driveway, the rear end of your car would have been facing towards Cedar Crest.
Correct.
And then you would straighten out, and now you've got a straight shot up toward Chapman Street, correct?
Yes.
And it would also mean that you drove the length of the Alberts property, correct?
Yes.
While you did that, sir, Julie Nagel never said, what was that, did she?
I did not hear Julie say that.
She never said she had seen.
Julie Nagel testified that she saw a blob on, that her word, a blob. First it was like a black object and then it became a black blob that she maybe did or didn't see on the lawn. And she admitted to being drunk and having had a few. So it was very inconsistent testimony, not very believable.
Seen a black object, correct?
I did not hear her say that.
She never said that she saw a black blob, correct?
I did not hear her say that.
And she didn't say that the black blob that she supposedly saw was 5 or 6 feet in length, correct?
Again, I did not hear her say it.
And she never said that she might have seen a person, correct?
I did not hear her. You talk about in the car?
Correct.
Yeah, I did not hear her say it in the car.
And you were right there driving, correct?
I was driving, obviously focused on the road. The windshield wipers, it was snowing pretty heavily.
You didn't have earplugs in.
I didn't, but they were all talking in the car.
You didn't have AirPods in.
No, I didn't.
Certainly not the noise cancellation AirPods, correct?
Correct. I did not have earpods in.
And you never stopped the car because you never heard Julie Nagel say anything about anybody being in trouble, correct?
I did not hear her say it.
Okay. You woke up the next morning, as you said, to screaming, correct?
Yes.
The screaming was so loud that you thought that the person screaming was actually in your bedroom, correct?
That is correct.
That was, and it startled you, fair to say?
Yes, it did.
And then ultimately, you learned that Karen Reed ended up in your driveway, correct?
Yes.
You could hear her screaming outside, correct?
I could hear her outside, correct.
She was hysterical,
She was screaming Jen. She just kept repeating Jen.
in a hysterical manner.
Yeah, Jen, Jen. Yes.
And she was screaming so loud that she was in danger of waking up the whole neighborhood, correct?
She was loud, correct.
And other than screaming Jen, Jen in that hysterical tone, you really couldn't make out her words a lot of the time, correct?
Not when she was outside my house, no.
Skipping ahead to when you went back to Fairview that morning, it's fair to say that when you went, did you say that you went inside Fairview at maybe around 7 a.m.? Is that a good estimate?
Yeah, I don't know the exact time, but it would say give or take, could be a little before, a little after, but somewhere in that vicinity.
And I believe you testified that the only people inside that you saw there were your wife, Brian Albert, and Nicole Albert. In addition to Officer.
At that moment, that's what I recall seeing there.
Okay, so there were, and you didn't know where Brian Jr. was, whether he was sleeping, but you didn't see him.
I don't recall seeing him at that moment, no.
Okay. And Officer Lank was the only police official that you saw inside, correct?
At that moment, correct.
Okay. Now,
This
in
was
the
back when Link got called back to the Albert residence, back around 9 o'clock, and they started getting their story straight.
days after January 29th, you participated in a group text exchange with 3 other people. Do you
Here it
recall that?
comes.
Can you name the 3 people?
Sure. You had a group text chat going with your wife, Jennifer McCabe, your brother-in-law, Brian Albert, and your sister-in-law, Nicole Albert, correct?
Oh, yes.
I'd like to ask you some questions about that group text chat, if I might.
Sure.
You would agree with me that on February 1st of 2022, that was 3 days after John O'Keefe passed away, correct?
Yes.
And at some point on February 1st of 2022, you were physically either at or near the Albert home at 34 Fairview in Canton, correct?
I could have been. I don't recall if I was there.
Do you recall watching what investigators were doing in the neighborhood on February 1st?
I do not. If you could show it to me, I could maybe reflect my memory. I do not recall that specific day.
You don't recall monitoring what troopers were doing in the
I was not
neighborhood?
monitoring anything that the troopers were doing. If I had driven down the street, dropping someone off, picking somebody up, and saw the troopers, then I saw the troopers. I was not monitoring anything.
Directing your attention to 1:30.
Watch his mouth. He like laughs like I was not doing that. It's almost maybe a tell that he does when he's lying. I don't know.
Either at or near the Albert home at 34 Fairview in Canton, correct?
I could have been. I don't recall if I was there.
Do you recall watching what investigators were doing in the neighborhood on February 1st?
I do not. If you could show it to me, I could maybe reflect my memory. I do not recall that specific day.
You don't recall monitoring what troopers were doing in the
I was not
neighborhood?
monitoring anything that the troopers were doing. If I had driven down the street, dropping someone off, picking somebody up, and saw the troopers, then I saw the troopers. I was not monitoring anything.
Directing your attention to 1:34 p.m. and 27 seconds. You texted your wife, Brian Albert, and Nicole Albert, quote, troopers back out front, but in front of Asian house. Did you not?
If I texted that, you could show it to me.
May I put you on?
Yes.
He texted that to his wife, Jen McCabe, and Nicole and Brian Albert. The troopers were outside with
02150.
No, show it
the
to him.
neighbor's
Don't.
house, the Asian's house.
Thank you.
I'm showing you a document, sir, and if you look up or look at it by yourself and look up at me.
I don't use glasses, but I can't see this. So maybe I need glasses. I'm making it out. I got it.
I do have
Is it light?
No, he says he doesn't.
No, it's
do it.
not. It's just dark, but I got it.
Go up front. What?
What the hell?
If you're struggling,
I'm reading mine, right? The middle one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Take
yeah.
all your time, take your time.
I got it. I see that I texted what you said I texted. The troopers were outside of the house, yes.
Right, that's my question. This is a page that contains the group text that you had with Jen McCabe, Brian Albert, and Nicole Albert, correct?
Yes.
And in terms of the question that I asked you you now acknowledge that you testified troopers back out front, but in front of Asian house, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. McCabe, what is an Asian house?
The next door neighbors to the Alberts were Asian.
There are 2 Asians on the jury. How do you think that's going to land with them?
So you mean that a family of Asian origin lived next door?
Yes.
They were the next door neighbors to your brother-in-law and sister-in-law?
Correct. They lived, if you come out of Fairview, they lived to the right of the Alberts.
And did you know their last name was the Chungs?
I had no idea that I've never met them. I don't know their last names. I just knew it was an Asian family next door.
And you didn't feel the need to ask their names or try to call them by their names?
I've never met them. Sorry.
Objections sustained. You know what, Ms. Giannetti, let's come to sidebar, please.
Oh, well, he can't say that. But I think we're about to go to break here.
When you did tell the group chat about the troopers being at that house, nobody asked you to clarify which house you were talking about, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that. Did anyone ask you to clarify?
Nobody asked me to clarify that I recall.
In fact, Brian Albert responded with just a question right now. Do you recall that?
Yes, I think that was on the screen you just showed me.
And you responded yes, correct?
Did I get to see all the text or no?
We get to see all the text.
In case you need
Just give it to him.
look at it silently to yourself.
Where you said Brian Albert said right now?
Yeah, would you like to see that?
So would that be the last one and then this is the next one? I'm just making sure.
You would agree with me that after you told the group in this group text that the troopers were back out front, in front of that house, Brian Albert's response was right now?
Yes.
And then you said yes, correct?
Yes.
And then Brian Albert replied, okay, correct?
Objection, Your Honor. As to the reading.
Okay. Is that how he replied?
That's what it just said, yes.
All right. Now, at that point, you texted the group that you were trying to get a picture of what you were seeing, correct?
I didn't see that on the text.
And you don't deny that you said that in the text,
Can you
correct?
show me the text, please?
Oh, sure. Oh, did you say you didn't see it in the
I didn't
text?
see that, no.
I'm sorry. That's probably because I didn't give it to you.
He sent some image, which we don't get to see, but he at some point tried to send an image to the group that he was chatting with.
May I put-
Yes. Hey, Mr. Lally?
That's the next page.
They're gonna argue. And
Again, read it to yourself and look up at me when you're done.
Very much.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, much better.
You reviewed that. Do you acknowledge that you texted the group that you were trying to get a picture of what you were seeing?
Yes, I said I was going to try to take a photo.
All right. You would agree with me that you were watching what was going on, correct, on February 1st?
No.
so they knew there were troopers nearby watching them. And then they're having conversations about the fact that there's troopers watching them. So that's a little suspicious.
I just happened to be driving through the neighborhood at that moment.
So you happened to be driving through, and then you texted the group to tell them what you saw, correct?
Yes.
And then you didn't just keep driving up the road and leave the area, did you?
I think I did.
Well,
Unless you tell me I went back, I think I did. I said I was going to try to take a picture.
right. Well, that's my point.
Yeah.
You weren't, just having seen the troopers back out there at that house, in your mind, you still weren't done, correct?
I was going to take a picture to show them, oh, the troopers are outside your house.
Right. So in answer to my question, you weren't done with that scene, correct?
I think I was, because I don't know if I took a picture.
Well,
I think I went through. I mentioned I was going to try to take a picture. I don't know if I took a picture or not.
you didn't intend to be done at that point, correct?
I didn't intend to be done.
Right, because you wanted to take a picture of what was going on.
I was going to take a picture to show them that the troopers were outside in front of the
I
house.
wanted to
Correct.
continue to monitor what was going on. Did you not?
I was not monitoring what was going on. I just happened to drive by at that moment.
May we be seen in sidebar?
Okay.
I think we come back and they go to break. So let's just, yeah. Let's skip till we get back from the break. I love being able to skip through all the breaks and the boring parts.
Having reviewed those, sir, does this appear to be an accurate transcription of the sequence and the content of the group text chat within that time frame?
Yes.
I would offer that, Your Honor.
All right. The only concern I have is I don't want to give the jury something they need a flashlight to read.
Well, my next...
So can I see it?
Of course.
I believe the jury is in the room. I just think they just took a break.
Or at least looks like it.
Yeah.
Basically, go down the page to see the responses.
Did you guys see that? Let's back up.
Explain them,
Yes.
please. Thank you very much.
And feel free to use the flashlight there.
Yes, thank you. Oh yeah, that's much better.
Okay,
Yes.
now we can all see it. With regard to your initial text exchange that we talked about, can you confirm what you texted at 1:34 and 27 seconds in the afternoon of February 1st, 2022?
Yes. Do you want me to? Oh, Trooper's back out front, but in front of Agent House. Looks like more has been dug up there for at least, looks like it.
Oh, and just basically go down the page to see the responses. Okay, and who was it that responded to your notification that the troopers were back out front?
Brian.
That would be Brian Albert.
Brian Albert Sr.
Yeah, yep, see.
And notice his cell phone number that ends in 0888. He eventually, when he upgrades his phone, he changes his number for some reason. Wonder why he does that.
His response was?
Right now.
And that was at 1:34 p.m. and 45 seconds?
Yes, it was.
And you took that to be a question, correct?
Yeah, asking right now, yes.
And we can move to the next one. Yes, 2151, please. Go ahead, welcome, sir. Yes, please. All right. And you responded to Brian by saying what to his question about right now?
I responded, yes,
And that was at 1:34 p.m. and 56 seconds?
yes.
You would have still been on scene at that time?
I'm not sure if I was still on scene, but I was obviously, if it was in the area, it must have been in the area, correct?
And the next exchange is this? And who responded to you?
Brian Albert again.
And his response was?
Okay.
Do you have a memory as to whether or not Brian Albert was?
So this makes me wonder, were the Massachusetts State Police originally going to look into them? Because why are they out? This is February 1st. So what, 2 days later? 3 days later? And the troopers are outside watching the Albert home. Isn't that interesting? I wonder if they did have some kind of inkling or suspicion, but they got called off because of something Trooper Proctor did or some kind of manipulation of the evidence that took place. I don't know. It just seems really interesting that they had troopers watching their house 2 days later and then, or 3 days later, whatever it is. And they're all talking about it in a text.
On scene at that time, or if he was somewhere else?
I don't have a memory of where Brian was at that time.
Given the fact that you're saying troopers are up front and he's asking right now,
I'd assume he's not, I'd assume he's somewhere else, yeah.
and your response to him, or your response to the group, I should say, was what?
I had to pick up a car, so I drove through.
All right, so this is a little further than we talked
Oh,
about.
I know, we'll get into the next one. (1:35 p.m. and 16 seconds, Mr. McCabe?
Yes, that's correct.
And your text to the group of you, your wife, Brian, and Nicole Albert is
Trying to
what?
get pictures.
Trying to get pictures.
All right. And at this point, I've asked the next bubble. The next bubble comes from Brian Albert.
Yes, Brian Albert.
All right. And that's 1:35. and 30
Mr. Yannetti, let him,
I'm sorry.
the screen speaks for itself. If
What-
it doesn't, then the witness can.
Upwards. What time is that at?
135, 32.
All right. And his response, does that appear to be a typo?
PK, I'm assuming.
All right. The next bubble after that would be 2153, please, to talk. And that is from whom?
Brian Albert.
All right. And the time there, are you able to make that out?
Does that say 135, 34 or 138, 34?
Whatever it says. If you can't see it, you can't see it. Next.
Sure. And his response was,
Okay.
does that appear to be correct in the PK?
I'd have to go back and,
Well, the previous one, you
Next question.
Sure. All right.
Why is she so ready to like fast forward him through any kind of evidence that points guilt towards other people when it's clearly evident that Karen didn't do this and these other people are on trial right now.
Let me take that
Clearly.
off for a minute. I'd like to just go over two more areas of these group chats with you. You would agree with me that later that same day on February 4th, the four of you, your wife, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, discussed in that group chat the fact that Michael Proctor was talking to Kerry Roberts over the phone, correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
At 3:01 and 48 seconds, you commented on the interview of Michael Proctor with Kerry Roberts, did you not?
Objection.
Sustained.
May we be seen?
More sidebars. Come on. It's a long one. Oh my goodness.
Something that he can have?
3 more pages and ask if you can identify those.
A little bit more, Matt. Not much longer. It's really good. Just wait. Just wait for the end. Hurry up, buddy. He can't read. So we're supposed to expect that he saw V-shaped tire tracks in the snow on the street when he can't read a text message. Trust this guy as an eyewitness.
Handed,
Yes, that's correct.
and now having
So, sir. All right, so
I
go
just
ahead.
march it up. Yep.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Yannetti.
the pages that I've handed to you and that you now have in your possession, those are from the same group chat that you identified earlier, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it appears to have the same sequence and content of the group chat as well?
Yes.
I would offer that one.
Over the Commonwealth's objection, again, I'm not sending anything to the jury that they can't read. So let's mark this for identification. And the substance of those, each individual one will be question by question.
Understood. So, Mr. Bates, with regard to page 21-6, may that be displayed on?
May what be displayed?
I just offer that as an exhibit, and I'm asking.
And I did not take it in. I said the content on a question by question, so it's each bubble.
All right. You saw that at 3:01 p.m. and 48 seconds on February 1st that you texted, quote, very weird that she's been barely interviewed. The whole dead comment was just told. I was supposed to have them talk last night and forgot to tell Proctor to call her. Do you recall that?
I recall it, correct.
And those are your words, correct?
Yes, they are.
May that be displayed?
No, it's in. We may display it later, but I'd like to move this testimony along. So that's in evidence.
And then in that discussion,
He keeps like interrupting him and shushing him like in the moments where it gets good.
at 3:03 p.m. and 15 seconds, it was Brian Albert who texted, quote, hope they don't think she's making it up after the fact for some reason, end quote, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Can you read the timestamp again?
It's the second
It's on
page.
page 02161.
Oh, I found it.
Yep,
Yes.
it's in the middle. I got that timestamp correct?
3:03:15.
Correct. And I read that accurately. Hope they don't think she's making it up after the fact.
Yes, that's correct.
And then less than a minute later at 3:05 and 32 seconds, you replied, yes, she was hardly interviewed, and I think just answered what was asked. Oh, I'm sorry. Strike that. Strike that whole question. I skipped his next response, which was at 3:05 and 2 seconds, where he said, but if they barely interviewed her, that's on them, correct?
That's from Brian. Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, with regard to that exchange, you would agree with me that you were talking about Kerry Roberts being interviewed by Michael Proctor, correct?
I don't want to make an assumption. Do you have the text previous to this that shows that we're referencing Kerry?
I do, and I'll show you that only to refresh your memory.
Yeah, I don't want to assume something.
I understand. I'm going to show you one page and ask you to look at it silently to yourself.
Okay.
And I open the page.
Okay.
You just look up at me when you're done. Feel free.
That's what I was looking for.
Of your group chat conversation?
Yes, it did.
And certainly it was talking about Kerry Roberts being interviewed, correct?
Yes, it was.
And you were
I would love to get my hands on this conversation. They're talking about some interesting things here.
passing along information about that interview to Brian Albert, were you not?
Yes, I was letting him know that Kerry was being interviewed.
And you were telling him things that she was saying, correct? Remember you said the whole dead comment was just told?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
All right, in any case, we're going to move on to the very last
He did say that.
discussion that I'd like to ask you about. Earlier that day, February 1st of 2022, at 12:50 p.m. and 37 seconds, Brian Albert texted the group, which would have again been his wife Nicole, your wife Jennifer, and you. And that text was
Objection, Your Honor.
Okay, so I can't. Which bubble on which page?
02148.
Right, on which page?
That's the page, 02148.
Okay, so I don't have
And
that.
the bubble is.
Two.
And for the,
So you're objecting to it, so I'm not going to let you say what it is. You can show it to the witness.
yes, well,
Which one is this?
second bubble on 02148. Then the third bubble on 02148. And then the first bubble on 02149. That's all I'll be asking about.
Thank you.
All right, so I won't allow, based on the objection from the Commonwealth, the second bubble on 02148. I will allow the author of the third bubble
It,
on page 02148
no, the second bubble on 02148.
is not allowed into evidence.
I need to be heard on that then.
No, all right, I'll hear you at
Meh, she didn't want to hear him. So now we're going on sidebar. I think, did the jury could just go out? I don't know.
And Mr. Jackson, if you are planning on doing this with the next witness, I'd like you to let Mr. Lally know. Gianetti.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McCabe, when we broke, I was just about to ask you about the last exchange here. You will agree with me that on February 1st of 2022 at 12:51 and 49 seconds, you texted the group chat to say, ask Chris to ask some questions, correct?
Yep, I'm reading it right now. Yes, that's correct.
And who is the Chris you were referring to?
That would be Chris Albert.
Brian's brother, correct?
That is correct.
And then you then texted your wife, Brian Albert, and Nicole Albert, quote, tell them the guy never went in the house, correct?
Yeah, that's part of the same text. Yes.
Tell them the guy never went in the house. That's what they're texting each other just days after John's life was taken.
Mr. McCabe, who was the guy that you were referring to? Does he have a name?
That would be John O'Keefe.
When you told the group to tell them the guy never went in the house, that was you talking about how you should all get your stories straight, correct?
No.
You would agree with me that your stories are all straight in terms of the guy never went in the house, correct?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
John never went in the house. It's not a story, it's a fact.
Well, when you said,
Okay.
tell them the guy never went in the house, Brian Albert was on that exchange still, was he not? He was still part of the group text?
Yes, Brian is on exchange.
And Brian Albert was the one to respond, wasn't he?
Let me switch pages here. 51.
He responded, did he not?
Yes, he did.
And then at that point, you knew Brian Albert was the oldest brother of the Albert family, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
The oldest sibling in that family, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in his response to your instructions that his younger brother, Chris, should say that John O'Keefe never went in the house, or the guy never went in the house, you would agree with me that he responded with one word, correct?
Yes, he did.
And in response to you saying the guy never went in the house, Brian Albert's response was, exactly, correct?
Yes, that's his response.
We're done here.
All right, Commonwealth, any
Done
redirect?
here.
Just briefly, Your Honor.
He said, we're done here. That's how he had said. Let's go again. Watch that one more time. Play.
His sibling in that family, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And in his response to your instructions that his younger brother, Chris, should say that John O'Keefe never went in the house, or the guy never went in the house, you would agree with me that he responded with one word, correct?
Yes, he did.
And in response to you saying the guy never went in the house, Brian Albert's response was, exactly, correct?
Yes, that's his response.
We're done here.
All right, Commonwealth, any redirect?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
He can't even, like, Lolly tries, but he cannot bring it back. So what do you guys think about that? I mean, wow. Proof right there. They are trying to come up with some kind of story to make sure that they're all on the same page and just say the guy never came into the house. That's all. Just the guy, you know. Not your friend of several years, one of your close friends and confidants and whatever, because Jen McCabe was so close with him. Whatever. I think she liked helping him, and I think she got jealous when Karen was in the picture. Not that that's a motive for what happened to John, but I do think that that's part of the meanie mom, the mean girl attitude comes from for these individuals. Jennifer McCabe does not work. She raised 4 children. She might have a little extra time on her hands just to gossip and talk about people. Just saying. I don't know. I don't know that for a fact, but it does seem like the Meanie Mom group is in full effect. And it, when you hear, I'm not going to go over Jen McCabe's direct testimony necessarily, unless there's something, like total glaring inconsistencies. But I do feel like it's because if I listened now at this point to her direct examination, and it is bad. Especially knowing the facts that like I do so well in the case, I know that the defense is just going to poke all the holes through her narrative. So it's going to be great to watch, fun and exciting to watch on Tuesday morning. And I will share that with you also in a recap rewatch video like I'm doing here. So hope to see you then. Please make sure that you are subscribed and you've got the notification bell on so that you don't miss future episodes of Canton Cover-Up and other topics very similar because I like to go for topics of corruption.
If you've been impacted by a true crime and would like your story told in your own words, or if you or someone you know has been wrongfully convicted or accused of a crime, please write to crimeincourtchannel@gmail.com and tell us your real true crime encounters. Thanks for watching.